Okay.
Wait, hold on, Glenn. I'm going to start streaming now too. Sorry, I have two buttons when we're live streaming.
Hey, Laura, that's Rosemary, the number. Do we know?
I don't.
Okay. I'm just trying to do an attendance.
We'll do a roll call. Go ahead, John.
Okay, it is Friday morning, May 1st, and we are going to start the Economic Development and Historic Preservation Environmental Conservation Committee. Do you want to take a roll?
Brian Backus.
Here.
Clark Henry.
Here.
Dart Strayer.
Here.
Dennis Brennan.
Here.
Denise Murphy McGrath.
Here.
Jean Fody.
Here.
John Delarada.
Here.
Stan Faminsky.
I'm here.
And we do have someone on the phone. Oh, go ahead.
Paul Briggs.
Oh, Paul.
Okay, so we will call the meeting to order. I don't believe there are any public comments because the public wasn't able to join in with this meeting, unfortunately. So we'll go over to the minutes. Everybody have a chance to look over the minutes of the last economic development meeting.
So I was going to try and get them done for last night. And then I was like, well, if I send them to you guys at, 10 o'clock at night and our meeting's at 8 o'clock in the morning, what good does that do? So I'm still working on them, and we'll have to have 2 sets of minutes at the next Economic Development Committee meeting. I apologize about that.
No worries. And that will bring us to item number 3. And Laura, if you want to talk about the stop work order on building permits.
Yeah, I left this on the agenda because it's still very relevant. We still have it at the top of our news feed. It's just the stop work order on building permits is continuing until at least May 15th. And the guidance for that is still up on our website. It's just all regular construction has stopped, and only essential, emergency, and single workmen are allowed to fill out an affidavit and continue their work in the town of Niskuna.
Okay. And that brings us to the resolutions.
So the first resolution is the resolution to set fees for subdivision and site plan applications. And that was following the public hearing. We had to hold the public hearing back because we have to have a different way of allowing the public to interact at a public hearing. And I don't know if we may or may not be able to do that for the next meeting. If we can, we'll put all of our local laws back on there. If we can't, I guess we'll have to wait.
Okay.
That one's pretty uncontroversial. We've talked about it before, and I am just, so sad that these two are still on here, but the shade structures and the pesticide-free lawn, I couldn't get either of them done for the last meeting. So we'll just keep giving it a try.
All right. Sounds good. And that brings us to D on resolutions.
So this is the local law to allow hens on single-family residential properties. If you scroll down in your packet, it is modeled after the city of Albany. Ignore the section numbers because we would probably make chickens its own chapter so that you guys could call a public hearing on it if you wanted. But it essentially allows keeping of hens if the property has 200 square feet of total lot area. You can have 2 hens. An additional 100 square feet for every hen, up to a maximum of 6 hens. You can't have roosters. You have to have clean, secure areas for the hens. They have to have a covered enclosure. That enclosure does have setbacks. You can't be closer than 25 feet to an occupied residential dwelling on an adjoining lot. Then there's areas for the coop to provide, minimum safe places for the hens to live. You have to have a permit from the town in order to have hens, like a building permit. and you can't slaughter them on your property, and they have to be kept safely and kindly, or we can seize them to protect them. There's a couple of rules in here about what you'd need to submit for your hen permit, and that's pretty much it. Did you guys take a look at it and have any questions on it?
How did you come to the number 6?
So this is just directly it's basically directly taken from the city of Albany. There are a lot of them out there to look at, but the city of Albany recently adopted it and has had quite a bit of success with it. So their code is longer than some, and not all require a permit, but I think the city of Albany was trying to just be really thoughtful about that. You know, some people don't want chickens, but there's a lot of people who really feel like they need to have them in order for the urban farming and all that kind of stuff. So they struck a balance, you know, where you can have 6 hens under these certain conditions with setbacks and all those things, and you keeping them in good condition. But
All right.
it's not like you can just go out and buy hens and put them in your property anywhere you want. They can annoy your neighbors. I mean, you really have to, this is a balance between, you know, letting them in, but letting them in with rules.
Right. But what happens if they don't follow the rules? I don't see that here.
So that is down, they can have their permit revoked, and if they are,
Where is that?
so it's down at the end.
In
Seizure
C?
of hens?
The building inspector can revoke any permit upon determining, you know, that the facility is no longer meeting the requirements for the issuance of the permit. And then you can also seize the hens if the animal control officer feels like they're not being properly taken care of.
So the animal control officer would be in charge of this?
Well, that's something that we'd have to figure out. This is both building department and animal control officer. Like the dogs code is animal control officer.
Yeah.
This is both.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other thoughts on this resolution?
So John, you mentioned that, and I know Denise has asked for this a couple times, that we want to put out a survey on chickens.
Yes. And I think we have made some steps to do that. Do you know if that's up and running yet, Denise?
I don't know if Bill's put it up yet, but it will be going up today.
So if we get information from that, we can use that information to guide, you know, anything in this law, and but you know, maybe we can have point people to take a look at it. Like if we're not able, we could introduce it if you guys like it, or if you want to wait for the results of the survey.
Do we need any type of public hearing on this?
Yeah. So the first thing would be you introduce the local law in the packet, and then call for a public hearing. Then you hold the public hearing, and then you can make modifications to the law or enact it at the following public meeting.
So Laura, you feel like your office has enough time in their schedule to be able to monitor this or govern this as well?
Well, I mean, we're already maxed out, but
Yeah.
But you could have the town of Albany has clerks issue the chicken permits, but in this case, I mean, we're the office that reviews plot plans and looks at setbacks for coops and looks at square footage. I think it would probably be an unfair burden on the clerk to have to be reviewing licenses for chickens and following up. Like, we have the system to review and follow up much more. The city of Albany does clerk, so we changed everything from clerk to building department. But the enforcement of okay, you're supposed to have your coop 25 feet from your neighbors and you plopped it on your lot line. That's something the building department can easily do. The enforcement of you're not taking care of your chickens and they're not in good shape, that's not an expertise that the building department has. And that's why I think you have that animal control officer has to be a part of it in some way.
The animal control officer is really a dog warden. That's that's one thing that we really have to reconcile through this.
And I can speak to that because we've had that issue, and we've had our animal control officers has not wanted to get involved in anything other than dog problems.
So
Hi,
we,
Syed. Can everybody hear me? Morning, it's Supervisor Syed. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. What in other towns and cities that have chickens? Do we know who enforces it there? I know you said that the clerks issue the permits, but who
City of Albany.
enforces? Do we know?
Well, a lot of the codes don't have an enforcement provision, which is poorly written code. Like if we adopt something, we
Yeah.
have to have an enforcement provision. But I think they mostly are animal control officer.
Okay.
I mean,
just
I
curious.
think we've got Waynesburg. We've got a couple of them from around here that we looked at. That I can send you guys all the ones that we looked at. If you want to see all of them. The city of Albany is just the newest we reviewed and enacted, and like probably the most comprehensive, which is why we chose it.
Hey, Laura, I apologize, but I have Yasmin, but there's another voice. Can that person just announce who they are so I can put it in the minutes?
It's Paul Briggs.
Oh, gosh. Sorry, Paul. Thank you.
Laura, does this proposed ordinance impact the current ordinance about like farm animals and stuff if you have over 10 acres or 5 acres? Is there a conflict
Well,
there or no?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually apart from it. So it's this one is actually written to be in the zoning code, but if we wanted to move on it, it would probably need to be its own chapter. And so it wouldn't affect that part of the zoning code.
Well, I would like to get the ball rolling if we can and put it on for a public hearing. And that way, while we're waiting for that time to come upon us, we'll get the results of the survey and other input, and we can still kind of work on it if need be.
Okay, so maybe we can. I mean, if you guys are you interested in me sending out some of the other model chicken codes that we looked at?
Sure.
Okay, and then if we think perhaps we should refer it to the public safety committee to have the police weigh in on the animal control officer part.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I know that.
What would be the expectation of the Public Safety Committee?
Just to review the role of the animal control officer.
Okay.
The next item is the approval of the contract for Weston and Sampson to do the critical pedestrian connections for the pedestrian grant. So this is designing the crossings on St. Joseph and River Road and designing the sidewalk from Knott Street and also putting a crossing on Knott Street. The total cost is $33,750. And it's just a little bit more than what I budgeted for engineering. But there's it's possible that they won't need to do the one connection on River Road if that one gets done with the Kelch Farm development. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
It's not that far off the mark, right?
Yeah, it's
How
not
much
too
more
far.
over was it?
It's like $4,000 to $5,000 over what I had budgeted for engineering. We do have contingency built into that.
Okay. Is there any,
For the River Road, would you just put that on hold right now until we got through with Joel, or would you just basically proceed with that and the work, the engineer work?
Yeah, actually, I feel like you probably have to put that on hold because you don't want to put money into designing and moving it when there's a developer who's got it in his plans to be designed and moved.
Right, so that would
installed.
reduce the cost.
Yeah, so maybe I'll reach back out and have them remove that part. And then yeah, that probably will bring it down to with what our budget was.
So you're saying that for the whole project? I mean, there are folks over there who've been waiting for years for this.
Just for the River Road crossing?
Yeah, they've been waiting for years for the River Road crossing.
Yeah, I mean, but you probably wouldn't want to spend all the money designing and moving it if it's going to be moved.
I know this is a really unfortunate situation. I mean, because then we're going to go a whole other summer without it over there.
will we have to wait that long? I guess we would, wouldn't we?
For the Kelts Farm development, I mean, we can, in reviewing of the Kelts Farm, I mean, nothing's guaranteed in any development that goes before the town, but you know, if it does get approvals, we could require that the first thing the developer does is move the crossing.
But they'd move on the St. Joseph's. You'd get moving on the St. Joseph's right away.
Yes, the St. Joseph's and the Knott Street crossing and the Knott Street sidewalk.
And these are all years, 3 or 4 years. So I would hate for all of them to wait on Celts, and then we don't get any of them. It's bad enough that we wouldn't get the River Road one this year, now, in the next couple of months.
Is there any other way to speed it up?
Well, it's your guys' call, but I understand, but I just don't know that it makes any sense at all to engineer and design and put in a brand new crossing when the town would require for it to be moved and redone a year
No,
later.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I don't want the other ones to be held up. I'm
Well, why don't we go
disappointed.
ahead and- why
I'm
don't we
certainly
go ahead and do
disappointed
that?
about it, but I understand why we have to do it.
Yeah. So are we gonna go ahead and award that minus the River Road?
That would be my recommendation.
I would be in favor of that. I don't really see any other alternative.
I apologize. Actually, I meant to say this at the beginning of the meeting. The reason that Kevin Walsh is not on the meeting is because his mother died last night.
Oh,
So send him your thoughts and prayers. But I don't know, Dart or anybody else. Or Yasmin, are we okay moving forward with that? And Denise?
Yeah, I would vote yes.
Yes. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Sure.
Okay.
okay, where does that bring us to?
So our next item is summer interns, and I don't have anybody locked in, but I did hear from Brian Toy, who did our amazing ADA transition plan. I am able to give him plans and things and codes that need to be updated, and he's even able to work remotely on them for me. He's absolutely an amazing asset, and he has put internships out elsewhere, but with the current way that the world is going, he's heard that a lot of the companies aren't going to take on interns. I could definitely use him. So I just wanted to put his name there so that if his internships don't pan out, that he can work on plans for me.
Okay.
Any questions on any of those? Did I miss any resolutions that anybody can think of? So the planning department and the planning board have been working really hard on the Kelts Farm that we were just talking about. In your packet is the most recent plan that the developer has submitted. It does have a 90-degree bend. It does have the moving the crosswalk and aligning it with the multi-use path and doing all those connections. I mean, the planning board is continuing to work on that, you know, the layout, the logic of the Kelts Farm proposal. And I think, you know, I've copied you guys on a bunch of emails for this. The Windsor Drive connection is being shown. There's a lot of benefits, you know, for emergency vehicles, for neighborhood connectivity, for just access to Blatton Park that are the reason that it's shown. And the planning board didn't want to not show it and then put it in. They think that the best thing to do is to show it, get all the public comment, and then if the traffic study pans out or something doesn't work out, then you can take it off. But you would want it there so that you can have the public weigh in on all of the things that it's obviously the most impactful option. So they are getting a traffic study that's supposed to be coming in the end of May. You know, the timeline that we spoke about is if we can get the traffic study at the end of May, then potentially the planning board can be reviewing it in June and then make a recommendation to the town board in June, July. I know the developer thinks that we're not moving fast enough, but generally speaking, I think the public has concerns that we're moving too fast. And, you know, the planning board really wants to make sure this is one of the last big pieces of land that we have in the town. You only get one crack at it, so you got to do it right. Potentially, the town board could call for a public hearing in late June and hold the public hearing in July, and then have potential action in July or August. I don't think the timeline would be any shorter than that, but it could go longer depending on what comes back from the traffic study and what kind of other information we need. And I said this before, and you saw it in those comments that I sent you, the planning board is definitely going to have a community roundtable with Windsor Drive residents. It was scheduled initially, started to get it ready for the end of April, end of March. Yeah, because now it's the end of April. Yeah. So we were going to put it at the end of March. And before we had a chance to send it out to everyone, that was when town hall closed down. So this kind of meeting obviously makes the most sense in person. And if there's any way we can do it in person, when we get that guidance from the governor, we'll take a look. If we can't, then we'll definitely hold it virtually to the best of our abilities and just do what we can to continue that conversation. And there's a lot of really good ideas. And then I just wanted to mention again, you know, Complete Streets and I and Planning Board just had briefly mentioned putting a boulevard, putting trees in the middle of Windsor Drive to try and narrow that visual corridor and slow cars down. But I mean, that's not even a researched, engineered conclusion that we were coming to. We're talking about chicanes. We had talked about stop signs. We had talked about tables and bends in the road, just anything we can do to slow those cars down. I had some really good conversations with residents, got some good feedback on it, and they brought up a lot of good points. And, you know, there's no reason at all that the town board would move forward with a boulevard without, you know, fully vetting it. And, you know, probably much less expensive and easier things to do would be the treatments that were done on Windsor Drive. If we want to try and do something out there to we've talked about this in Dean Street. There's just a couple sections in town that for whatever reason, they have wide right of ways, no street trees. The road is a little bit wider, and they just that wide open kind of view shed will naturally, just as human beings naturally, tend to drive faster. So did anybody have any comments or questions on that?
Laura, I have a question. I think it's a good idea that we move the bike path around the other way, but is the town maintaining a right of way on that short part of the circle in case we end up with a herd path on the west side of that circle going to the bike path?
Yeah, we would maintain the right of way. We talked about that because the last iteration of the drawing, the developer had the crossing over there. The crossing's on a curve, and the county is not going to want us to put two crossings that close together. So you really want to bring all the pedestrian and bicycle traffic to the most safe place to cross the road. If somebody does cross there and the herd path does start happening, we can relook at it, but you really want to direct the majority of the traffic. And the other thing about so say you can only have one crossing, you want it to be closer to where the existing Riverdale one is, so that you're obviously allowing the Riverdale people to cross, without having to go too far and around the bend and all of that stuff as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. The only other recommendation I would make then is at that western stub of the circle, Kelts Drive, where the bike path is, that space there is maybe the town wants to put some plantings in there to sort of discourage people from going that route, just to make it a little more difficult before it gets established,
Yeah, you should definitely do that.
The second question I had is who on the open space, I know we talked about this in the CAC, but what is the plan with the open space? Is the association going to own it, or is the town going to own it?
The developer's preference is the town to own it. Honestly, we really haven't gotten that far in who's going to own the land. I think the intent is that it would stay forest because we have a park across the road, and we're kind of like, you guys hear it all the time, like so much of our forest is being taken down. If we can protect and leave chunks of forest, I think in this instance, that's probably a good use of open space in this area. The advantage to the town owning it is, we have control over it, but, it does cause some headaches sometimes for the highway department. If a tree falls from the open space into the backyards of residents, like often they call us and say, get your tree off your yard, which the town is usually pretty good about, even though tree law says that once a tree falls in your yard, it's yours. It can just cause some headaches for the town because you end up being the maintainer. Does anybody from the committee feel strongly one way or another about the town owning the open space?
The reason why I asked that question is I think personally it would be good for the town to own it, just because we can maintain the wooded nature of the property as opposed to relying on another organization. But that's my personal opinion.
What do we do with our other open spaces in these types of situations? Are they kind of split?
Yeah, I would say that they are split. A lot of times the homeowners association owns it when it's more like a yard and common play space, like with picnic tables and mowing and things like that, is more typically a homeowners association. Like if you look at the woods, like in the Dublin, Avon Crest North area, Hummingbird Manor, Fieldstone, all those places that are forest tend to be owned by the town. But they do also cause headaches for the town. There's no question. But like when it comes to lawn, we just have that weird one on Cary Court that somehow they managed to get the town to take over. and it's actual lawn, and the town mows the lawn around those homes. And I definitely think we never want to do that. I think the only time that it's okay for the town to take it over is when it's forest, with the realization that you are adding some additional, land for the highway department occasionally to have to, if there's trees or whatever, you're adding a little bit more to their world.
I am okay with the town maintaining control over it.
Okay, sounds good. So did anybody have any other questions or comments on that? Well, we're really just waiting for the traffic study. When we get that data, we'll be able to start having conversations with residents and bring more meaningful stuff back to you guys. And I did want to mention quickly, the traffic study, yes, there were some little stripes across River Road. They are there, but everybody understands that this is not an appropriate time to do a traffic study. So they're really using historical data from 2015, and they're using phone data, and they're using a variety of other types of ways of collecting and projecting vehicle trips. And Clark and I did reach out to the Capital District Transportation Committee. There's because the planning board had never seen a traffic study that is using this kind of data, and the CDTC had some comments for us, and they offered to look the study over for us, which is great. And we'll also have a TDE look at it, just to make sure that we're really capturing the best data that we can. I mean, there is, a lot of uncertainty both now and in the future of what the traffic will look like. But we'll do our best to be as conservative as possible with the estimates so that we can essentially gauge kind of the maximum impact that we could predict for Windsor Drive and then work from there.
Very good.
Okay, so the next thing is, 220 or 2220 Crescent Ave. And we've talked about that a couple of times. There's nothing controversial about it, except that at the last planning board meeting, the engineer asked for the diagonal parking on Crescent Ave to be included. And we talked about that a little bit before with the project that's going on at Knott Street for the county. There was a lot of concern about where the parking was going. And we've talked about this before, that the apartments themselves, actually, they have these old garages that are very thin that you can barely fit, kind of 20 cars in. And, they only have one parking spot per apartment, which wouldn't meet code these days and does cause problems for anybody who has, dual jobs that they can't walk to or bike to. So they have a really hard time parking their cars and cause a fair amount of problems on Crescent Ave. Not really of their own making, just because those structures are pre-existing non-conforming. So there has been a thought to put some diagonal parking on Crescent Ave, and a couple of the business owners have asked about it. And you'd have to do it really tastefully and respectfully, because obviously there's residential homes across the street, and so we don't even know what that would really look like yet. We were talking about right now, we really need to do the study and engineering on the Crescent Clifton Park kind of alleyway intersection. And if we do that, and I was talking to Ray about this, maybe we should just study that Crescent corridor and see if we could delineate and maybe even transfer over some parking spaces that the apartments would own, so that we don't have to worry about plowing them, but could relieve some of the parking issues in that area.
Hi, guys.
Oh, look at that.
Isn't she so cute? He wanted to say hi to her.
What time? Like what time? Not like.
In like an hour, okay. Sorry.
An hour shall be here?
Or 2, yeah. Sorry, I couldn't get a babysitter this early. So, I don't know. Would you guys be okay with at least looking at the Crescent corridor? The plan is in there. I mean, that's just Frank's drawing of it. And like Clark already reached out to him, like he's got to scale it, and we've got to look at it a little bit more. And it's probably not going to be included in Crescent Road, but you can see how wide that right of way is. Like when you drive down Crescent Ave, it's like 80 or 100 feet. And Clark, jump in here. It's very similar actually to the co-op in that those apartment buildings are actually sitting very close to the lot lines. They don't have the ability to add parking. And it is some pretty important, I would say it's some pretty important types of housing units in the town that we don't have a lot of. So if there's a way that we can protect them and allow them to continue, it's a, something to consider.
And Laura, these folks have talked to us about this, or this is your idea? Because then we also have the folks on Clifton Park and Vietnam who are very unhappy about all of this. So
yeah, so the people, Gail and Frank's idea for in front of their building. We did talk about it with another apartment owner who's interested in figuring out a way that they could add some parking for their property as well. And then just looking at the corridor holistically with everything that's going on with Notch Street. But yeah, when we held the special use permit public hearing, I don't think they came to the town board, but a couple residents from Clifton Park were concerned about the commercialization of Crescent Drive and wanted to be really careful and have, the landscape screening and stuff. So like the proposal that Frank's got here, I don't think that would be something that the town would want to see. That's obviously not, there's no landscaping. There's nothing that is going to protect the people across the street. Like you'd have to do, some curbs and islands and plantings and things that would make it look more natural that had been there. I think the thing that you definitely do not want to do is increase like the sea of asphalt that you already have when you get to Clifton, that Clifton Crescent Knott Street intersection.
yeah.
Hey, Laura, would this be public or private parking?
Yeah, I mean, so if you had it as public, then it would be open obviously to everybody who's using the businesses on Knott Street. And that may relieve some of the parking concerns that are over there. But then you have, and Ray brought this up, like how does the town plow it and can people park in it overnight? If they can't, then you're not helping the apartments at all. If you pull the right of way in and allow, some limited parking in front of each of these apartment buildings, and maybe the town, and the town just gives the land or whatever, however the town can do that, sort of cedes it to the adjacent property owner, then it would be theirs and it wouldn't necessarily serve as public parking, but it would help with some of the car situation that's over there currently. So
yeah. My concern though, if it were public, the school students would want to use it. I know there's signs all over that neighborhood already saying not to park on the street.
Yep. So that would be interesting.
How would you limit that?
Yeah. I mean, if you make it public, it's public. So that's a really interesting thought. Yeah. I could see that happening. So the other, that may not work.
So what was the concern, Matt, if it's public again?
I know living over in that neighborhood years ago, there were signs all over the roads saying that no student parking. And during the day, the kids that didn't want to park in the parking lot at the high school would find the closest side road and park on the side of the road. And I don't know if are the signs still out there? I'm not sure if they still have them.
I don't know, but I could definitely see that being a problem.
Well, I thought is there not enough parking in the high school parking lot? I didn't realize that that there were students.
I think the issue was the younger kids wanted to park and they may not have had room in the parking lot. Maybe it's changed since some work there, but
yeah, because I know they call it a senior lot for whatever reason. So you might be right about that. Rosemary might know. She's not on though, is she?
Yeah, I think that they only issue a certain number of permits to juniors that have jobs and stuff like that. It's very limited. And that's why you see them getting creative where they park, because there's a lot more than like, yeah.
They're not allowed to drive or park in the lot.
Right.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Okay, so well, let's that was a really good point that I hadn't thought of. Like maybe we'll vet that one a little more before we fully flesh it out. But I still think that we need to take a look at the corridor as a whole to see if we can figure out anything that makes things better. But yeah, I think not thinking about that, you do have to take into account how close that is to the high school and how much high schoolers like to park nearby. I mean, we've had that problem at town hall. No question. Okay.
Laura,
right.
we're almost kind of treating that separate from Gail's site
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah, it is separate. Like she was saying, you know, if she could build it, she would, but it would have to be done on a corridor wide kind of plan. So Dart, I know you have to go at 9. Is there anything that you wanted to directly speak on to the agenda before you have to leave? Oops, did I lose him?
He's locked up on my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, you're muted. There you are.
Hi. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having bandwidth problems. No, I'm okay. Where we are on that, with the remaining part of the agenda, I'm fine. I think.
Okay.
Again, I apologize. I'm locked into another meeting down in South Carolina that I have to hop on to. It's a thesis defense, so I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, we'll send out the link. I'll talk to you because we have CAC on Wednesday. So
yeah, okay, great, good, okay.
Thanks, Dart.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, so going back to the agenda. The Vincenzo Drive 4-lot subdivision. I included the most recent plans in here. We still get a lot of comments and concerns by the neighbors on drainage. So the developer submitted, there's some drainage details on the plans that are on here. And he also submitted a drainage analysis and a SWIP. We had a first round of comments by the TDE who felt like more of the lots needed to be taken into account during the review. So the developer is going to relook at that and add some more things into the drainage analysis and the SWIP. And we'll just continue to work on it. We got, deed restrictions on the back of the lots and for no further subdivision. And it seems like you could fit more houses in there, which would be a bigger impact. So there's I think a lot of benefit to the town to just having these large lots with forest in the back, but there's still obviously documented drainage and a lot of issues there. I know the town board gets a lot of comments on what's going on there. So we're in the sort of full stage of engineering, reviewing, and figuring out where the water's coming from and where the water's going.
Okay.
Go back up to the top. The 2764 Choice Connected Road Niskuna Animal Hospital received its approval from the planning board. The next step for them is to submit elevation drawings and go to the architectural review board and building permit. So they're all set from the planning side. Oops. And the Dominican Retreat, I just put that in your packet real fast. They want to be updating their signage. They got approval for the signage that's in your packet. They want to put a directional kind of tasteful sign on Rosendale Road so that there's not so much confusion with those back entrances, and then update their front sign. Right now, their front sign sort of looks like a road sign, and they would put it, as you can see in that document, like more of a landscaped retaining wall, welcome to the Dominican Retreat sign. So we think that that's going to be an improvement to that entrance there. Anybody has any questions?
We haven't heard any follow-up on the JCC Golub sign?
No, I mean, we do have a way forward with them. We're ready to work with them when the submittals come, but right now, a lot of stuff really, even if we continue to review things, not everybody is in the same place that they were. So, whenever that comes in, we're happy to work with them. But we haven't received anything from them.
All right.
The zoning board has no cases currently scheduled for May, and I think that's just a reflection of a month lag in no building permits being, our actually still reviewing building permits, but much less building permits being submitted. So the Aqueduct Park grant, bathrooms he's working away on the bathrooms. We're trying to get an updated fountain possibly installed there that would be a bottle filling station. And they are finalizing the signatures on the contract to do the docs that we approved last month. So that's moving forward. The River Road Park update, I know I've been getting a lot of emails. I apologize. The engineers do have plans and would like to have a conference call, having everybody take a look at the plans and figuring out what the schedule is for going forward. So the next step on River Road, I think, is to just share those plans with everybody and get them talking about them so that that gets moved forward. And then the Upper Union Street plan I attached, and I've gotten a couple comments back. Thanks, Matt and Fire Chief Lingenfelter. It's unclear from the plans exactly where that crossing is, and that's making it hard for people to submit comments. It's in between the Brookdale home and St. Cattery, but where it is between Brookdale home and St. Cattery, I think is the issue. So I'll reach out to the engineer and have her provide like an aerial so you can see where that is, and then hopefully we can get more questions. And right now you can see those drawings are at 50%. So if we can bring them up to 90 or 100, we can get those out this summer.
How much are those grants again?
So Aqueduct Park is a hodgepodge of $40,000 from the DEC, $150,000 from from the Canal Corps, and then some money, some parkland money that we're spending. River Road Park update is $250,000 from Assemblyman Steck, and then we bonded for some of it last year.
Yes.
And then Upper Union Street is $125,000, and that's also an actually, I would guess that's an Assemblyman Steck grant, but I was not here when the town awarded that grant. That was Kathy Matern originally secured that grant, so I'm not 100% sure, but it's through DASNY.
I think you're right. Denise, do you remember if that was a STEC grant?
I don't, John. I don't.
Okay. And are any of those matching, Laura? Do we match any of those grants again?
Upper Union Street and River Road Park did not come with a requirement for matching, but when we got into the River Road Park upgrades, you needed more than $250,000, which is why the town bonded. So it's technically not a matching grant, but the work that needs to be done is over and above. So, I mean, I think we are ourselves putting $200,000 to $250,000 into it as well. The Aqueduct Park grant is matching, and that's why a lot of it is coming out of parklands. It's 50% matching on Canal Corps, and it's, I think, 20% matching on DEC.
Okay, very good.
Complete Streets update. I think you guys probably all heard the school did pick a new configuration of schools. So now the Complete Streets just wants to keep it in their minds when they're doing their architectural drawings and just push to get bike ped connections into their bonding. They came out with some numbers that the school configuration is potentially adding more traffic and buses, and they're trying to show that it'll be a limited impact to our roads, but the way that we can mitigate that, I think, is to really push for more bike and pedestrian connections, and the town can do their part as well. If we can get the bonding in from the schools and they can bring their sidewalks and multi-use paths out to the edges of their property, that just is obviously a perfect place for us to connect and continue those Complete Streets, safe routes to school connections. And then they've been sending a couple emails back, like the Knott Street proposal. The Schenectady County did a press release that they had, have worked back and forth and come up with an option that they're reviewing for their secret determination. And our chairman has shared it with the Complete Streets with some comments, generally speaking, favorable. So I know it's not a town project, but we do like to keep complete streets in mind when we're looking at any of that and support the county and do whatever we need to do to help. So.
Excellent.
And Tree Council, thank you guys for all your call outs. That was great. I think the Arbor Day was successful. I do think that I did not expect for there to be that many cars backed up over Van Antwerp, and apologize to the police department about that, but everybody stayed safe and not everybody got a tree. I think we had to turn away about 30 people. And I know some people heard me say this, but it's just a bummer because we were shy 20 trees. So we had ordered 205 and the lilacs didn't come in because there was a COVID delay, I think, from that particular landscaping company. So nobody got their lilacs. They gave everybody refunds. But if we had had those additional trees, we would have, only turned away a small number of people. So it was a bummer that at 9, I know there were some people in their cars with kids in their car seats waiting, and I just was heartbroken that we didn't have those extra 20 trees, but everybody stayed positive and it was really fun and safe. And so I really appreciate everybody for all the help that they did on that. It was great. And then the highway department is working with us on the spring tree planting locations. I know they've been doing a lot of planting. They've been trying really hard to do more diverse species, which I really appreciate. When they were at town hall, I was talking to Mike and they had tupelos and sweet gums on the back of their truck. And I was like, just very excited because we just want to increase that diversity so that if emerald ash borer comes in and wipes out all our ashes, we're not losing 90% of our trees. So I think small steps, but it was really exciting to see the diversity of trees they had on their trailer. And we do have, a variety of trees that we were able to order last year. We do still have a couple dawn redwoods, a couple more sour woods, and some hackberries that we want to get out there and plant just to make our town more beautiful. So we're working on that as our next kind of project. Any questions on any of those? For the Conservation Advisory Council, the only thing they have on their agenda is just their first kind of review at the environmental impact statement of the Kelts Farm they'll be looking at on Wednesday. But I did want to let everyone know that we did receive an email from MEGA that the community choice aggregation timeline is probably being pushed back because of COVID-19. A couple of the big cities said they still want to move forward, but right now residents just don't have the time to be reviewing this information and they don't want to push it when people have so much other things going on in their life. So they're talking about doing an extended education outreach period and then collect everybody when things calm down a little bit and then move forward the way that we were talking about moving forward before. So I've got that email. I can send it out to you guys. I think they're just looking for input and on timelines, and that's the update I have on that. Sorry, I'm just writing an email, send that to you guys. Climate Smart Communities Task Force, still working on the July 3rd deadline submittal. That's going to come way faster than I want it to. We're going to try and have an electronic meeting with those guys. And Clark, do you just want to touch bases on the Architectural Review Board?
Sure, I can do it really quickly. Dave and I are working on that. We're going to have our second meeting on May 13th, Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. The committee decided that early in the morning works best for the participants, so it's first thing in the morning. And we do have two kind of inaugural things that they're going to look at a little bit. The Ace Hardware greenhouse, just making some proposed suggestions to keep that in character with the area, and then also just some advice to the Niskayuna Animal Hospital, just to make sure that that addition blends in, because that is a residential area, making sure that addition blends in with the overall feel. We've also done a little background work looking at Bethlehem, Saratoga, New Rochelle, and we'll go over that at the meeting, and we'll be able to show a little something on that for this meeting next month. Just a little summary.
Thanks, Clark. Just building department, I mentioned this a little bit. We're still reviewing building permits, even if they can't be issued under the stop work order. So if you have a project that, you want, that you have plans for, you can submit it to us. We're getting them all ready. They're just not being issued until the stop work order is lifted. But it's easier for us to process them now, even if it takes a little longer working from home, than for us to have, 150 come in the span of 1 week. So if anybody's out there thinking about a building permit, feel free to reach out to us and get it submitted, with the understanding that it just can't be issued until the stop work order is lifted. And then
Laura, I'm sorry, do you know if the Mohawk Golf Club finalized their building permit on the work that they started doing over there on Union Street?
Sure, yeah. I mean, their pool definitely did qualify for emergency, so they had to be able to bring that pool to a place where it could be safe and secure, which they were allowed to do. And then they, I believe, submitted an affidavit for a single worker inside that other building, so that there's one guy in there that's working on some of the inside stuff. So they obviously have to move slower when it's just a single worker. And then when the stop work order lifts, they will, be subject to whatever new orders come down from the governor. But I would imagine they might be able to have more than one worker in the building.
Thank you.
Yep. And we are still following up on complaint inspections as time and safety permits. It is taking a little bit longer. We are getting them, just asking for people to have patience, but still, send us their concerns. We are still following up when we can.
Hey, Laura, just to follow up on that also, we just scheduled some kind of inspection, John, for the Mohawk this week. There was something that was able to be inspected by Ken. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, so that is being taken care of as one of those emergency things, Laura.
Thank you, Jeannie.
You're welcome.
And a planning department training update. The National Planning Conference got moved to a virtual conference. I obviously was not able to go to Houston, but they made it so that you can pay a very nominal fee and get 20 continuing education credits that you can actually review the courses and submit them for over a year. It started on Wednesday and finishes up today. And so I took a bunch of classes on Wednesday, and they were really interesting. There was a legal class on holding your meetings virtually, and what kind of notifications you had to do, and what there's a group of lawyers whose thoughts were, and I know it may feel frustrating at times, but I actually think that from listening to them, we're really ahead of the curve and doing a lot of things right. Virtual meetings are very frustrating, but I think that we're doing okay. And when you listen to the way that the rest of the country is struggling with it, and I've heard Cuomo say this a couple of times, but New York has had to be dealing with this for a little bit longer. And I do feel like, some of these places are just starting to deal with the issues that we now have. This is our second virtual Economic Development Committee meeting. So it was interesting. It's good to hear what's going on out there. They had a lot of thoughts about how COVID's affecting planning, what you can do. There's a lot of really good information. And if people have comments or want to look at something in particular, I'd love to share some of the training. I think it's just refreshing, and it gives you a sense of hope and togetherness with the rest of the country and everything that's going on. So anyway, I know everybody is really busy, but it is nice to have some training to put things in perspective. Is Paul Briggs on the line for legal?
I am.
Did you have anything, Paul?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay. And Dennis, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I'll just add that we can now move forward on ordering the plaque at the Rosendale Common School. Unfortunately, the factory has been closed. They may be open today. I don't know, but they've been closed for the last 4 or 5 weeks. So it'll probably be a good 2 to 3 months before we see the plaque. But that timing might be right, because perhaps will be right at the beginning of the new school year. It'd be a good time to put it up. But that's all I've got for now.
That's really exciting. Thank you for all your work on that, Dennis. That's all the items I have on the agenda. Does anybody want to add anything that's not on there? So one of the things I learned from my training is that anytime that you're doing something that would normally be consent, when you're doing it virtually, you should probably like go through the adjournment, like voice by voice. So if you guys don't mind, I'll just call out for adjournment and then we can adjourn.
That'd be fine. Oh, one
Um,
more thing on the community, the CCA.
Mhm.
What is it about COVID that is pushing that back? Why?
Just a couple of the cities, basically, I think because they sent a lot of their workers home. They're not, just like us, they're not fully staffed. They just have one person in the office handling things, or no person's in the office. And they just, everyone I think is still committed to the CCA. It's just with the level of workforce that's going on in government and the other things that people are dealing with, I think they just asked for MEGA to just continue education for a little bit longer so that they could get back up and running and then restart the timelines.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so for adjournment, John?
Yes, we can adjourn.
Yasmin?
Yep.
Paul Briggs? Did you leave Paul? Paul? He left.
No, yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I agree. Yes.
Brian? He's not listening anymore. I'm not sure he's sorry. Okay. Denise?
Yes.
Okay, I'll help you. Dennis?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. John, John, I already called you. Matt?
Yes.
And Stan? I think he's muted. He's still there. It's close. We'll just keep working on it. It's not a perfect situation. Okay, Brian. Okay. Think we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 All right, bye.
Hey, Clark,
Thank you.
are you still there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the people on your
Thank you,
architectural
Jeannie.
team, bye, is one of my best friends.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was talking to her the other day, Stacy Thomas.